The letter arrived in a crisp white envelope, stamped with a flashy gold emblem that screamed importance but reeked of trouble. I didn't need to open it to know something was wrong. Letters from the HOA never came bearing good news. They were always about fines, petty complaints, or new rules designed to make everyday life feel a little more like prison. But this time it was worse. The letter said my monthly HOA dues were increasing by 500%, effective immediately. 500%. I blinked, read it again, and then again, just to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. No explanation beyond necessary community improvements. If I didn't pay, there'd be penalties, liens, and possibly legal action. I stood frozen for a moment, stunned at the audacity, before anger surged up from my chest like a fire I couldn't hold back. I stormed out of the house, clutching the paper in my fist, and made my way to the HOA office, a squat brick building hidden at the edge of the cul-de-sac. I shoved the door open without knocking. There she was, Samantha Ellison, president of the HOA. Mid-40s, eternally bitter expression, like she'd spent the last decade chewing lemons. She glanced up from her computer, her face stretching into a condescending smile. Mr. Hanson, I imagine you're here about the dues increase." I slammed the letter onto her desk. "Damn right I am. What kind of scam is this?" Samantha folded her hands like a kindergarten teacher talking down to a child. "It's not a scam, Mr. Hanson. It's necessary." "Necessary? For what? New landscaping? Repainting the clubhouse?" "I don't use the clubhouse, I don't swim in the pool, and I don't care what flowers line the sidewalk. Why should I pay for all of this?" Her smile widened unnaturally. "Because that's how an HOA works, Mr. Hanson. If you're unhappy, you're welcome to sell your home and move." My jaw locked tight. I'd lived here for over a decade, paid every fee on time, shoveled snow from my neighbors' driveways, helped fix fences after storms. This was my neighborhood. I wasn't going to be bullied out of it by a woman who thought power was a personality. You can't just raise dues overnight like this. It's extortion. She blinked, as if amused. "Actually, we can. It was approved by the board." "The board?" I scoffed. "You mean the same 5 people who say yes to whatever you want?" "You're welcome to attend the next meeting if you'd like to voice your concerns," she said with a fake sweetness. "This isn't over," I told her, turning on my heel and walking out. My blood was boiling, but I knew better than to throw a tantrum. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. That afternoon, I buried myself in research. As a homeowner, I had a legal right to access the HOA's financial records, even if they tried to bury them behind red tape. After hours of digging through documents, things started smelling rotten. The money coming in didn't line up with what they claimed was going out. Vague administrative costs littered every report. And then there were recurring payments to a company called Eastfield Property Solutions. The name sounded familiar. A quick search confirmed my suspicion. Eastfield was owned by Nathan Ellison, Samantha's nephew. She was funneling community funds to her own family under the guise of property management. Typical. But I wasn't going to just expose her. I was going to shut her down. I made some calls to contacts in city services, particularly the utilities department. Turns out the HOA office ran on a separate commercial grid. That meant if someone filed a discrepancy report, say, involving potential fraud, the utility company would automatically suspend service until things were sorted. That evening, I filed a report. By morning, the lights were off. No computers. No air conditioning. Samantha and her crew stood outside the office, blinking up at the darkened windows. I parked across the street, sipping coffee, watching the confusion melt into panic. Gloria, her second-in-command, paced back and forth, phone to her ear, barking into the void. But the power company wasn't budging. Nothing would turn back on until the discrepancies were addressed, and that could take weeks. Neighbors started gathering, whispering, wondering what was going on. When a few of them asked me, I didn't hide it. I showed them what I'd found, every transaction, every sketchy payment, every sign of corruption. The documents spoke for themselves. The crowd grew. Gasps turned into grumbles. People remembered their own stories, absurd fines, unanswered complaints, inconsistent rule enforcement. Samantha must have sensed the shift, because she marched over, seething. "Did you do this?" she demanded. I handed her a printed report. "Everything you need to know is right there." Her face drained of color as she flipped through page after damning page. Around us, the crowd wasn't just murmuring anymore. They were demanding action. Bill, a retired contractor known for his fairness and calm, stepped forward. He reminded everyone that according to the bylaws, Samantha's own sacred rules, we could call for a special vote with enough signatures. A clipboard appeared. Signatures filled the page within minutes. Just when the energy hit its peak, a man in a gray suit stepped out from the back of the crowd. He introduced himself as James Rivera, an attorney who specialized in HOA litigation. One of the neighbors had called him. He confirmed everything: embezzlement, fraud, and abuse of power. "With the evidence you've gathered," he said calmly, "you can not only remove the board but potentially dissolve the HOA entirely." Samantha tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. That evening, the neighborhood met in the park for a vote. Ballots were cast under the golden light of a setting sun. Samantha and her followers stood to the side, quiet, powerless. The result was unanimous. They were out. Cheers erupted. For the first time in years, we felt like we could breathe. Over the next few weeks, we uncovered even more ghost invoices, fake consulting fees, money funneled to accounts tied to Samantha herself. We filed a lawsuit. The judge moved quickly. Samantha's assets were frozen. Her nephew flipped on her to save himself. When her house went up for auction, a local nonprofit bought it and turned it into affordable housing for a young family. That was the final blow. As they moved in, the neighborhood stood on porches, watching in silence, not out of judgment, but peace. She was gone, and with her, the fear, the bitterness, the control. In her absence, the community thrived. People painted their homes however they pleased. The old clubhouse was transformed into a true community space. Volunteers took care of the green belt and playground. No fees, no power plays, just people working together because they wanted to. We handled what Samantha left behind: unpaid insurance premiums, fake vendor contracts, a secret loan buried in the records. We froze it all, proved the fraud, and got the debt dismissed. When it was over, we gathered again. No sweets, no votes, just neighbors sharing food, kids laughing, and the peaceful hum of a community finally free. And every time I flicked on my new driveway floodlights, one she would have fined me for, I smiled to myself. Because we hadn't just taken back our neighborhood. We'd reminded ourselves what it meant to belong.